Just a minute. Okay, so today we will study a new topic called malware. You know how malwares behave, what these malwares are. Okay, all right. So these are the topic we'll cover. Feel free to ask questions. Uh, you know, so we'll start with introduction. Then we'll look at what different kinds of malwares are. What is virus? How virus hide itself? Then polymorphic virus, metamorphic virus, general virus defenses, and we'll summarize. So basically very few topics we'll cover. We don't have time left out to get into design of virus, etc. And next two classes will finish malware, and then we'll move on to network security. These are the references primarily taken from Berkeley course, and then there's also good presentation available at Stanford. And also I have taken some contents from this book. Okay, go through this. If two people can keep a secret, but only if one of them is dead, right? So if you really want to keep anything absolutely confidential, then don't tell it to anyone. All right, so what is malware? Malware is nothing but a program, okay, that will run onto your computer and make your system to do something or behave in a way that the malicious person or the attacker wants it to do. Okay, so obviously viruses are written by somebody, right? Okay, with some intent. And it is, virus is not a hardware, right? Virus is a software. Okay, it's a program. Okay, and program with, you write also program, and program is deterministic in the sense it will do what you want it to do. Similarly, whoever is written this malicious program or malware or virus, so the goal of the virus has to achieve certain objectives, right, or requirements, to meet the requirements, right? Okay, but it has to run on victim's machine. If it doesn't run, then it's not really harmful, right? You write a program, a virus program, and print it on a paper, take a printout of that virus. So printout is what? Can it harm? Can a printout harm anybody?
No,
No, sir.
Okay, so it can't harm. Okay, now you have written the program, you compile it and keep it in hard disk or flash drive. Would it harm?
until it
Think
is
about
completed,
it.
like we can't say if it is harmful or not. Say.
No, it will never harm. And so just keep it. There are millions of files, thousands of files. Anyway, 10,000 of file on your hard disk. It will be another file. It can be whereas written there is there in the hard disk. You have thousands of applications, and files which you never execute. For anything to be, or any virus or malware to be effective, it has to run. This is the condition. So hard disk, see, when the virus is in hard disk or malware is in hard disk, it's in ELF format. It's a file, right? It's just a file. This file has to be loaded, and you'll have to make it as a process or process image. Okay, once it becomes process image, only then scheduler will schedule it. Now the question is that why do you want to run it, right? It's in the hard disk. It has to be somewhere in flash or somewhere, right? Then it will come to main memory. When you want to execute a Microsoft Word or PPT program or anything, you have to double click on it. So the virus, if is there in ELF format or a runnable format, then somebody has to invoke it. Who is going to invoke this? That's the question you have to ask, right? As a virus writer, you can write virus and it's not going to be executed, then it's useless, right? So it has to come to the life and somebody has to bring it to the life. That question you have to answer by yourself. Think about it and you'll get the answer. Okay?
Maybe like
Yeah.
if we are running any process, the binary gets executed automatically itself.
Yeah. So when you are running any program, if that program is virus, why should you run it? That's the question. Ultimately, user is running or one of your application is running it, right? Now you can answer it this way, that the application by itself contains virus. So if I create a file which looks like a doc file, I can put .pdf or docs as a extension of that. So your OS will know that this is a PDF file, and when you double click on it, it will get a program to run it, right? Adobe program to run it, or some other program to run it, right? So now if that file contains virus, then it will get executed. Okay, that's one way. Second is that you can write full virus itself and give extension of and give it very ambiguous name which looks like a real file. Okay, that you often use. Then you double click on it, again virus is there, right? It happens that so you get an attachment which looks like it's come from your friend, and then double click and then it gets executed. Okay, so there are a number of ways that this virus get executed. Okay, I mean we have seen buffer overflow problem where you can put the malcode as a user and it gets executed. So the biggest challenge is that virus program has got to get executed. Okay, or malware has to get executed, and for that you have to find out vulnerabilities, you have to find out ways, other ways it can get executed, or you will have to trick a user to double click it. So as a malicious person, you will be successful only if the virus or malware is executed. Just keep this thing in mind and they'll get answers automatically. What is it good for? Of course, we all know that what a malware can do, it steals information. Now we have viruses available, or when I say virus, actually it's a malware available that can store or record every key you are pressing. Is called keylogger. Okay, now it can record it, but who is using it then? Recording is fine, but there must be some bot or some agent or something in your machine, some malware that will send this whatever you have typed in to a malicious user or hacker or a criminal. Okay, so this keylogger is very commonly available malware. Now one example I can give you is that all your user ID and password, before it gets encryption, right? See, only when it comes to stage of OS and then it is to be sent over a channel, right, internet, then it gets encrypted. Before that, when you're pressing a key and there is an application or malware that records everything, then you can't do anything, right? So all your user ID, passwords, and even OTP can be read by these malicious programs, right? So don't be surprised if there is absolute cleanup of your banking account someday, because if there is a keylogger, it will know what's your user ID and password, and there's another program will read your OTPs that have come, then transaction is over. Okay, and it will happen at midnight, 2 o'clock when you're sleeping. Of course, it can delete files, it can look up files, it lockups the files, or it can basically encrypt the files for ransom, right, as a ransomware. You know, all the work that company has done is there in server, and somebody just, you know, scrambles it or just encrypts it. Then they will ask for millions of dollars to you know, to give the key for decryption. It's still the software serial numbers. What does it, how does it work out? Okay, if you want to buy some specialized software like Adobe's, for example, Photoshop, okay, or some expensive one which costs about 30,000-40,000 rupees in one-time purchase, okay, you can get it on dark net for just maybe 2,000 rupees. How does it happen? It's basically they, you know, these viruses or malware steal the software serial numbers or the key that's given, right? And then it sells it in the dark net. Okay, use your computer as a relay. What does it mean? See, anything that's going out of your computer is your responsibility. You know, if I hack into your machine and send some malicious email to your family and friends for ransom, that's possible. Okay, or I can use your machine to do, you know, denial of service attack on some system, right? So I pick up a system which is very expensive and I want your business to be disrupted for half an hour. I will use millions of computers around me that I have hacked, and then I will give instruction to them at certain moment. They just send ping to a machine and keep doing this for half an hour. Okay, that machine has to respond back whatever has come in. So it's called denial of service, distributed denial of service, DDoS. Unauthorized access to victims' machines. Once there is it gets into system and gets rights of the user or root rights, then it can do anything with the system. Spying on victims. This is very common, like, you know, very often the security cameras are itself hacked. Okay, so person can see what's happening inside an office or in a home, right? DDoS, of course, we have already discussed. Send spam emails. Okay, use your machine, your login IDs, etc., your email ID to send spurious emails. Damage the machine. It can damage. It can just corrupt the whole system, right? It can delete files and so on. Click fraud, you know, right? I mean, by clicking on certain links or websites, you get some money. So it can use somebody's ID and then keep clicking from your machine, and the criminal or cyber criminal will get money for that. And there are hundreds of such malicious activities. So what are these malwares then? Okay, so commonly there are hundreds nowadays, right? But on the something that we'll briefly look at are the viruses, logic bomb, Trojan horses, trapdoors or backdoors, browser plugins, extensions, scripts, worms, botnet, APTs, spyware, ransomware, and rootkit, adware, and so on, and many more. Okay, so now what is a virus? Can anybody tell? I'm sure some of you would have been infected with COVID virus, right? Are you, did you think what the virus is? What a virus? What is a virus? Can you define? Can you define its functionality?
Disrupt normal functioning.
Hmm? Yeah. Please go ahead.
Disrupt the normal functioning. of the bomb.
Yeah, very good. It disrupts, right? The disruption can happen in many ways, right? Not only through, how does it disrupt? What is the characteristic of the virus, right? First thing is that virus doesn't move by itself. If you are catching, if you have caught the SARS virus, then I'm sure you would have gone in an area where it exists. Okay, so it does not move by itself. It has no propagation property, right? You will be the medium to catch it, and then you will spread it. Okay, all right. So we can define that biological virus or SARS virus for that matter is a shell filled with genetic material like the red ones here, okay, that injects into a living cell, okay, thereby start infecting it. The cell then starts the manufacturing copies of the virus. Okay, it's a shell filled with some genetic material, and that gets attached to the healthy cell or living cell, and then it replicates itself. Okay, and these replicated ones gets attached to the healthy cell. So there is a process. Same thing we can see in computer virus. It injects in itself, the malcode injects itself into a healthy code or program, healthy program. Okay, okay, and then thereby infecting it, because you know in the healthy program you attach a virus. When this executes, this virus will also get executed, and this virus will make sure that it will multiply and so on, and gets attached to other devices, other programs, etc., etc., right? Okay, any question? All right. So so properties are, it infects program by modifying it, self copy into the program to spread, and generally tries to remain undetected. So when you have virus, you know, COVID virus, for a few days you won't feel anything. Okay, and then suddenly you start feeling, right? So it will multiply, and after at certain stage when it has, but till that time it's undetected, right? Similarly in computer virus, it keeps replicating itself, and after some time your whole machine's performance comes down, then you'll come to know about it. Okay, so it's one of the properties that it will hide, or it will not let you know its actions or activities. Okay, just a minute. Yeah, okay, all right. So let's go ahead. So definition is virus self-replicating, yes. Population growth, yes. So once a virus gets attached to a program, it will not be just one copy of the virus, it has to multiply. Okay, it's parasitic. What does it mean? What is a parasite? A parasite does not exist of its own. It has to get attached to something like some healthy cell or healthy living being, right? So it will get attached to a healthy program or good or non malicious program. So here it will be virus, but it can't exist of its own and can impact others, because it has to get executed. Remember that, you know, the whole point is that until it gets executed, it will not be effective. Okay, so is a code that requires user action to propagate. For example, very simple way that has been used to propagate virus is that this pen drives, you know, if you get a pen drive somewhere, you know, in some room, for example, you come to classroom and you get 10 or 15 or you get just one pen drive, or stick. What do? You take it. Okay, And then or maybe you get a magazine, you buy a magazine and it comes with a stick. Okay, it may be just less than a GB or something, which hardly costs 100 rupees or whatever, but still you may want to use it because it has come for free. What happens if it contains virus? And this is a very common way of spreading virus, that virus writers buy this memory sticks in 1,000 or sometimes 10,000 or whatever, and then leave them in a common place, near a grocery store or office, or in garages or parking lots and so on. And people invariably are greedy, and they get into trap. But the question that I can ask you is that how does, if even if my flash drive contains a virus, how gets it activated? And my hard disk may also contain similarly flash drives containing virus, but how does it get activated? How does the virus come into effect? How does virus spread? That's question that just think about it, you get answer. Of course, you are curious enough, right? If it says something, uh, if the content says something interesting to you, I mean, maybe, most expensive car or something more interesting topics. Okay. Sometimes, very, very filthy topics. Then the people want to click on it because they want to see whatever is there, and then they get trapped. What could be other way? When user action is not at all there, you don't double click it, still it can infect your laptop. How does it happen? Just think about it. A cyber criminal can make it bootable. Okay, so when it's a bootable, basically when OS is in memory stick, contents of first, and when you reboot the machine and the stick is there, it will take OS from there, right? That's how in many machines OSs have been modified and changed. So now your machine runs when you boot the machine, a stick is there, then it's a bootable file and contains virus. Okay, that's another way. All right. So you would have seen this kind of message in earlier DOS machines, but of course now it's a virus are very smart. They will hide. They will not give you any message, right? All right. So this all we have already seen. Its properties we have seen: the code that requires user action to propagate stay resident, and it works in stealth mode, wherein it conceals information, encrypts virus, prevents signature to detect virus, and it has polymorphic behavior. So this, some of these terms we'll discuss now.
Sir, I didn't get the point, like how without clicking the virus is being activated. Because when copying the data from the USB, we usually use the direct memory access, and like instead of going into the main memory, it usually transfers from USB to
Okay.
hard disk, right?
So if you have studied OS, you know that you can boot OS through your pen drive.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is it? There is some call called autox.bat. I mean, it was in dot, when DOS machines were
Like,
something like that, or exe or bat or something, right? I don't remember it
is there
correctly.
any
So these are
possibility like
auto
without,
run files, right?
yes, yes, sir.
See, these are auto run files. Based on this extension, it will, as soon as a machine boots up, it will use this, right? So now it will, if you have this program which is infected, then this will get executed.
But these auto run files has to be in a certain location, right? Which of course we won't copy the files to.
So it has got to be there in that free memory stick that you have got. Okay, how many people know about all this, right? I'm sure 50-70% of your class members don't know how that you can load OS or bootloader in the beginning, boot program from memory stick. Now think of your grandfather or a friend who is a non-com science student. They will be more than happy to get this stick for free and then put it, and if there is a instruction stick on top, to activate this USB drive, or sorry, to memory stick or flash stick, insert it while booting. How many people have intelligence even to know that it's all trap? Okay, to answer your question, you say it's all AutoX files. Without user action, they will come into play.
Okay, sir, got it.
All right. So now, okay, what are the propagation strategies? Means how does it get attached to an application that we have already discussed. When you opening an app, the code that runs when opening app. So when you open an app, what happens? A lot of activities are required for that, right? It's not that you double click and then the application. So there are a lot of, at least hundreds of these subroutines or functions are run. Okay, and it's one of them is malicious, then virus get into there. Okay, malicious, then virus get into the system. And the code that runs when system starts up, when you boot your machine, and if you try to install Linux, just see how long it takes. Okay, and just see the number of files it uses, right? The files are going to be more than 10,000 or so. I'm just speaking of, I'm just very vague number, right? So many processes or programs get either loaded together as or merged together and so on, but just hundreds of these functions are required. And what happens if one of those function is malicious? Okay, and code that then when user opens an attachment. And now I'm asking another question to you. Have you ever seen what a file contains? Okay, another way. See, whenever there is attachment to email, it has to be file. What else? It can be JPEG file for video, it could be docs file, or it could be PPT file, or whatever. Now, ultimately, this file is nothing but combinations of zeros and ones, right? Zeros and ones, right? Whatever, some combinations depending on what the content is and what the file is. Now you tell me, what is the structure? How does it know that it is a picture, for example, JPEG picture?
The header of this binary string, binary code tells us the extension.
Yeah, so extension is one, right? Very good. If you change the extension and still inside is something else, so instead of PPT, you change it to docs. Can it open it? Did you try this? It will, it will assume this docs, but what this, okay, if you have studied file data structure, you will know that every file has some header which talks enough about what these contents are. So this header is different. I'm not talking about extension, but header gives enough information about what this is, whether it's JPEG, MPEG, or hundreds of different file types. What does it mean? That how this data is actually, whatever inside must be interpreted, whether it's a big font or a small font, is an MPEG picture, is a link or whatever, all this semantics of that is defined here. Okay, and the file that you see today is not a plain simple file which contains only simple characters. It has pics, it has animation, it has whatever. Okay, so it will have macros, it will have scripts, it will have links, it will have formulas, etc. Okay, and that execution is there. So it's not a passive static file. It is when it has to come into life, it is actually executable one. Okay, it executes by the program. Okay, in case of PPT, it has got a Microsoft PPT PowerPoint program, right? So it is not static, and with all these formulas, etc., some of these can be malicious. Okay, so who will do this? Okay, if I get a JPEG or you know PPT file, it comes a malicious person, then it can contain virus inside, and it's a very common way of spreading virus, right? All right, get it? As an experiment, try doing this. Try looking at what a file actually looks like. Okay, Microsoft Page, for example, is extremely complex data structure. Okay, all right. So if these scripts or formula or whatever that's inside is malicious, then the program that's running it can get infected, or it can cause other programs to get infected. All right, okay. All right. So these points we have discussed. How viruses get into your system, downloading the infected files, clicking on the link of malicious website. It's a very common way, right, for young boys like you. Okay, don't get into honeypots. Don't get into those filthy websites. By the way, maximum amount of traffic goes through those malicious websites. Those are actually filled with all dirty material. If you go there, the very likely that the website will send you a malware. Okay, visiting compromised website, connecting your device to infected hard drives or network drives. Okay, you go to you all want free Wi-Fi, right? You go to a restaurant and you get a Wi-Fi. It's called Connect Me free Wi-Fi. What will happen? And it does not have a lock. It doesn't ask for password. You connect to it. This Wi-Fi this may be created by my laptop. Okay, where I will create a hotspot, and then I will, as soon as you connect to me, I will send a malware to your machine. Okay, so whenever you get free Wi-Fi, make sure that it comes from very reliable source. Okay, social engineering attacks, we all know phishing attacks, right? I mean, you get trapped that, you know, by sending you an email attachment, and then this detective comes from, like, you know, if somebody sends to an employee your salary increases. Okay, the person happily clicks on that and finds out that it contains some information, which is of course junk, but also contains virus, right? So you'll never know that his machine has got virus. Malicious Wi-Fi and IoT access points are another way your machine can get viruses. Okay, all right. So virus has to camouflage by changing its appearance, right? It has to hide. Okay, so it's arm race between virus writers and also the defenders, right? And that has in fact that has given the evolution of modern malware. Yeah. So attackers look for evasion strategies, right? They such that, you know, the user will never find it out. It's not easy to find it out, right? So what can it be? What could be evasive strategies, right? It could be change the, how do you, like a spy. A spy has to change the appearance, right? Similarly, virus has to change appearance, otherwise antivirus programs will find it out, right? So change the appearance of the virus so that each copy looks different, and that makes signature based detection harder, right? You know, because every code, every malware code has a signature, and like, you know, hash of a virus program will be a signature. Okay, now see, the way antivirus software work is to check those signature. So it goes to each file and then checks, you know, it hashes it, looks at the code, okay, and compares something that's already available. Okay, so the hundreds of techniques, right, of finding out how virus really works. So signature is one of that. Of course, behavior is another one, which we will not discuss. All right. So this, it means the appearance of the virus will change. When we say appearance will change, we'll see how. How a virus is nothing but a code. How appearance of code can change, that we'll have to see. Now attackers have slight advantage that can, is always, attackers have asymmetric advantage. We have studied this in class number 1, right? Attackers, so when there's a detection strategies by antivirus, and this how this antivirus works can be seen by attackers, right? So they will look at, you know, whether they have found out some signature, then they will come out with better methods, right, to be evasive. All right. Okay. What are the camouflage techniques? First is none. Let virus be naked, is visible to all. Second is encrypted one. Third is polymorphic, and fourth is metamorphic. What is camouflage? No camouflage, it means that is naked one, nothing, right? So there's a, okay, note that virus has got to get attached to something. There's a program code. Okay, and when this program executes, this the virus here will also execute. This is a virus code. When will the code is not high level code, it's a machine code. Okay, now it has to get attached intelligently, so that if the main program, the program here ends, then this will never get executed. So all those strategies we will not study in the class, right? But of course, virus have to make sure that this virus code executes. Okay, second one is encrypted. What do you mean by encrypted virus? Now this is a program code here. This is a good healthy code, and into that the virus program is not plain naked virus program, right? It's a encrypted program. So what is the machine code is there of virus? You encrypt it with encryption, some encryption algorithm. But note that encrypted code cannot run, right? How can it run? When it's a normal code, non-encrypted code, only then it can run. So it means that there has to be decryption layer. Okay, so when this comes into execution, then when comes to into execution, then decryption layer will decrypt this encrypted virus, and then this decrypted virus will start execution. Any question? So here it is that, right? So this encrypted virus gets decrypted using this decryption layer. So why are they doing it? Because the decryption layer is also available. What is the objective of doing this? Anyone? No, of course, what happens is that now detection technique or antivirus program, etc., will look for this decryption layer, because decryption layer will not change. But this encrypted code can change. How can it change? So every execution of encryption will change the look for this content. How can it change this encrypted code? We studied that, right? Every run of encryption will give different output. How can it happen? It can happen only when the IV is different. Initialized vector is different, right? Okay, all right. From this we come to polymorphic virus. In polymorphic virus,
Excuse me, sir.
yeah.
Sir, in the previous one, then it is the same as detecting a normal virus. Then, if you have to find the decryption engine.
Yeah, the only thing is that what is the difference here? Difference is here that every time the signature will change. So this is a file, right? Before it gets into execution, this file you hash it, then you get signature. Because antivirus programs are not going to get each and every byte of the program, and you have millions of files, then it will take years. So they hash it, get signature, and then even if they are checking every time, they are checking against what? Some pattern that's stored. Okay, and every encryption changes the look and feel of that virus, so it causes difficulty for antivirus program. That's it. Detection could be little difficult, but detection, this program, that decryption layer program has not changed. So now detection can be based on decryption layer code. Okay, now let's go through another three and then you can ask more questions. Now what do you see here in polymorphic virus? What do you see? It's the same virus. There are 4 versions or instantiations of that virus, and you can see all 4 are different. Now this is the same code shown as whatever color, and then this is in yellow, this is in blue, and this is in gray. And similarly, you can see its decryption layer code is also changing. You can see that, right? That's called polymorphic virus. How can you do this? Let's look at. So each time the virus propagates, it inserts an encrypted copy of the virus code. Okay, the virus also includes key and decryptor. Key has to be there, right? How do you encrypt it? Using key. Okay, and then there is a decryption algorithm. Okay, so in this encryption scheme produces different looking output and repeated encryptions. Now it means that you are going to use different IV for each encryption and using the different key for each encryption. So basically we are trying to evade the detection by these methods, right? So every time whenever you encrypt, you do 2 things, right? Use different key on different IV. Okay, all right. So goal is to evade detection by making virus look very different. Goal is not to prevent anyone from reading the virus contents. Okay. So here the encryption, you know that if you use very long keys, etc., the encryption will take time. Here you can use a weaker encryption algorithms. Okay, so it will look something like this. This is a main virus code. No, of course we are not showing here is the original file or to which is get attached, right? So we're not bothered about it. We are looking only at the virus code. Okay, so now there has got to be this is encrypted virus code, and for that there has got a key for encryption and decryption, and there has got a decryptor code. Okay, so decryptor code will say, this code will say use the key to decrypt the encrypted virus and then execute the decrypted virus. There has got to be some code here. We will say first use this key that's available and decrypt this, and then this code, when what you code you get, that is to be executed. Or basically it will say send the control back to main, healthy function, and then something, or maybe put this code, decrypted code, somewhere into somewhere in between the healthy code. Okay, something, some logic has to be there. Okay, now here what we are doing is that we are using different keys for different encryptions, right? Okay, so now, but note here the decryptor code remains the same. So and here we can see also a propagation code. The propagation code says use the new key every time to encrypt the virus and spread the encrypted virus with decryption code. Okay, so basically it simply says that use different key in each encryption. Okay, and use the decryption code to decrypt the encrypted virus code and spread it. So there has got to be some instructions or code here. So now these two copies of virus use different keys, but what is same here? So keys are different. Encrypted virus code is different. Encrypted program propagation code is different. So these are different because the keys are different for encryption. But what is the same? You can see same color for decryption code. Okay, so now a detection can happen through decryption code, decryptor code. Okay, so there are some strategies to safeguard, and please go through it. Now, another kind of virus is called metamorphic virus. Now here what we have seen in previous case, the code remains the same. Virus code is same. The machine code is the same for the virus, right? What we are doing is we are using different keys such that encryption looks different. So encrypted output of that virus code looks different. That's all we are doing. Okay, now what we can do is that why not change the code itself? And so every time the virus makes a copy itself, it changes its code. Can we do it? We'll go through it. So each time virus propagates, it generates a semantically different version of the code. What do you mean by that? How can you change the code? Basically, the output of the virus remains the same, but the way instructions are arranged can be different. Okay, and there can be minor differences in output or execution. Okay, but the virus body is different. Like it's called mutation of virus. It happens also in COVID. When it says mutated, it means that its structure changes. Similarly, virus here, metamorphic virus, changes its code body. How can it do code body? If you have done the machine instructions, right? If you have done architecture code, you can see that it's nothing but sequence of machine codes. Okay, sometimes you can change the order of the two instructions without impacting the result. Okay, Okay, sometimes you can instruct no op equivalent, right? Instructions, right? You can change the conditional statement. If there is a if else statement is there, you can modify this, right? You can change check in case of loop, for 1 to whatever, or while do and all that. You can do condition check at the end or at the beginning, and this code can be changed slightly, right? Now look at the machine code. You can renumber the registers, you can change the register. When you're using a register A, instead of that you can use register B, and so on, right? So there are a lot of ways in which the program structure can change. Okay, all right. Reorder the independent operations, right? You say that A, say for example in your C program, A is 5, B is 10, C is 20. When you're assigning that, you can also write C is 20, B is 10, A is 5, right? The order is changed, so the compiled code will look different, right? The machine code will look different. All right. Okay, and include some junk code which does nothing. In between in program you insert some code which looks different, right? Which does nothing. Okay, so all these techniques are used. So now what we have is that we have code itself looks different. Now, how can code look different? It means that when this virus is executed, then it has got to a program that will modify this program and create a new program. Okay, if that is so, then the rewriter may become detection strategy. So what can be done? That rewriter can also be rewritten. Okay, so when this rewriter is being used, it not only changes the virus code, but also changes the rewriter code also. All right. So there's the techniques that we use. Please go through all this. I will send this PPT to you. Now it is impossible to write perfect algorithm to separate malicious code from this. So if if you're doing machine intelligence or whatever course, and try to write an algorithm based on what the instructions are, can you find out that there's a code is malicious or non-malicious? If you can achieve that, it's fantastic. In fact, a lot of AI techniques are being used in cybersecurity nowadays, in detection in particular. So antivirus software instead look for new and unfamiliar code, because this kind of program is very hard to design. So there is a database. What antivirus program do? They have database of what different programs can do and corresponding signatures. And you have a file where you are doing something, right? So they will have they will have some signature available in the database, and when in your file they do hash or whatever and get signature of that and do the checking of that, right? So in this way, this it becomes, whole process becomes easy. All right. So defense is the flag the unfamiliar code, okay, by this method that we discussed earlier. All right. So now, because antivirus companies sometimes fool us by telling that they can detect say millions of virus, but in fact it's nothing but same virus is metamorphic form. Okay, all right. So this tells you about number of viruses, types of virus that are increasing nowadays, and then some institute says that there are 350,000 new malicious programs that are coming in certain period, I think every year or something like that. Every day 350,000 new malicious codes are coming. Of course, this could be in a metamorphic form. All right, and these are general virus defenses which I think all of you know. Don't run or install software from untrusted source. Don't get device drivers for printer or whatever from any website that's are available. Don't open email attachment. In fact, most of program, reader programs come with automatic check for virus. How many of you use antivirus program, legal antivirus program? If it's a free, then nobody has motivation to give you every day new detection methods or new virus signatures. Okay, don't use flash drive given by anybody else. In fact, don't use it even given by your friend, because he might have got it from somewhere. Don't open documents, PDF, etc. unless you know the sender. And there are many such. I mean, I've just pointed only a few. All right. Okay. Thank you. Any question? All right then.